each week.
This is the U.S. Bank Cougar Coaches Show on the Washington State Sports Network from Learfield IMG College. U.S. Bank. Put your trust in a bank that's been focused on serving the people and businesses in Washington and all across the country since 1863. That's U.S. Bank, equal housing lender, member FDIC. Tonight's show is also brought to you by Northern Quest Resort and Casino. The post-game party never stops at Northern Quest with 24/7 gaming, over a dozen restaurants and lounges, luxury rooms, and more. Details at northernquest.com. By Zeppos, the home for the Cougar Coaches Show. And by The Bookie. It's all here. It's all you. It's all WSU. Live from Zeppos, alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach, here's the voice of the Cougars, Matt Chazanow.
We are back. We are live. It is football season. It is so great to see all the familiar faces here at Zeppos. It's always a family gathering here at Zeppos, another packed house. Coach Leach is en route, I am told, from the practice field. How about an 11-win season we have to talk about? It's been about 240 days. And if I'm not mistaken, as we are here now and about to talk to Coach Leach, Gardner Minshew's spinning it for the Jaguars right now as the number one QB tonight for Jacksonville and looking to try to lock up that backup spot. Just an incredible year, the fifth 10-win season, fifth double-digit win season in program history. And now the Cougars come into this year with New Mexico State as the opening opponent here, New Mexico State, and then Northern Colorado, and then the Cougs head to Houston, and that's the non-conference schedule to start things off. Sounds like Anthony Gordon will be the quarterback. We'll talk to Coach Leach about how Gordo has been spinning it. It's amazing how the City College of San Francisco has fed so many great Cougs of late, from Shalom Luani. And at one point at City College of San Francisco, Robert Valencia, who probably started left guard, and Robert Taylor, who was the safety for the Cougs, who ran back that touchdown in Tempe, along with Aesop Winston and Anthony Gordon, they were all there at one time. There were four current Cougs or current or recent starters who were all out of that program. We'll talk to Coach Leach about how everything is going with Gordo and this deep wide receiving core. But before we do, let's relive a little bit of last year. We'll take a break. Coach Leach is on his way. We are live here at Zeppos. Cougs 11-2 last year. Last time we saw them, they won the Alamo Bowl. How about it?
Wyoming.
Handoff.
Show. Give us a call on the bookie call-in line at 866-COOG-TALK, 1-866-268-4825. Live from Zeppo's alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach. Here's Matt Chazanow.
Back here live at Zeppo's. It is that time of the week. It's game week. It's a home game week. It's finally here. It is college football season. Coach Leach will be with us momentarily. If you do want to call in, you just heard the number, 866-268-4825. And if you want to tweet in, which a lot of folks like to do, you can tweet M_Chaz. Here's Coach Leach walking in here to Zeppo's to a round of applause. And Coach will throw the headset on here momentarily. We do have a bunch of comments or questions for Coach, and we'll get to those in just a moment. M_Chaz, if you do want to tweet in a question here to Coach Leach. And it is New Mexico State Week coming up here, a 7 o'clock kick and a 5 o'clock airtime. Derek Dice and Jedediah Collins will get you started. Coach, it is great to be with you back here at Zeppo's. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Shoot, they've changed Zeppo's. They remodeled this whole thing, and it's really fancy now.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it sparkly?
It looks like Knott's Berry Farm or something.
It looks great. It looks good. It's another packed house with all these wonderful, familiar faces. How's practice today? How are the guys doing right now?
Yeah, we had pretty good practice today. We've had good energy all week, and then had Thursday night football, and some of those young guys look pretty good.
Yeah, let's get right to the young guys. I know everybody is itching to hear about Anthony Gordon and about Max Borghi and those that are going to be out there on the first snap possibly against New Mexico State. But I'm struck by the youth of this team and its athleticism. And I was talking to Super Dave about it, and he's obviously well aware of that. Is this as athletic as a young group as you've had here at Washington State?
I think so. I think they came they had a really good offseason, and I think part of the offseason was a result of some of the older guys that have really bought in. And so then, what was acceptable and the examples to follow I thought were really good.
Are there any units on the team? I saw the way Andre Dillard, the top pick in the Pac-12, drafted in the first round this past year. I saw the way he went to the Senior Bowl and he handed Liam Ryan his pink cleats, and Liam was wearing those cleats. And Andre, I guess they have the same size foot, and that worked out. But the culture seems really strong in the O-line as a unit. Is that team-wide? Is it unit-specific? Does the culture kind of ripple effect out to everybody, or is it each unit gets really, really tight?
Well, I think both. I think the whole team's really tight. I think Liam would have worn those shoes even if he had to stuff tissue in the toe to make them fit. But the O-line, I think, is if you have great camaraderie with your O-line, that's where a great locker room starts, because you got the biggest people and you got the most people. And so I think that part's critical. And then I thought that our O-line's been tight for quite some time. So's our locker room. And, again, that starts with the off season and doing tough things together, whether it's maneuvers or what, and then it kind of solidifies the group. But yeah, I think that they really haven't missed a beat from last year as far as being a close unit. I think that but nothing that happened last year counts for this year, so we'll have to see what transpires.
You've got Abe Lucas at right tackle. We mentioned Liam, and then maybe Valencia and Malangoa and Josh Watson could be the starting five there. How have they been as a group now? I know you return a lot, but you also lose Andre Dillard to the NFL, and have had just amazing success last year with only 13 sacks all year. It's just incredible. How's the line been this year leading up to it?
Well, it's a better problem to lose one guy that goes in the first round than it is to lose four. So, we got four of them back, and so then, the stuff tends to be choreographed reasonably well, at least starting out, and that's what you need with the offensive line, and it's the most important position. And and we've got a little bit of depth with some of those young guys, and then of course, we've got to fill a guy in Valencia. We've elevated him, and he's the starting left guard.
Some of the youth there has looked really good. Cade Beresford, Jarrett Kingston, those are both redshirt freshmen. Patrick Uchinsky. I mean, it's kind of exactly how you would have hoped for it to have gone, right? I would think 4 straight years with All-Americans as part of the blueprint when you got here, and this is now your 8th year here on the Palouse.
Yeah, we've got the young guys came in ready to work, in pretty good shape, and just big frames, big bodies, so that part's really good.
All right, how the QBs looked, and I didn't mean to omit Brian Green, the backup center. He's been good too, and Hunter McGinnis. But let's go QBs. Anthony Gordon, Trey Tinsley, Gage Gubrud. What'd you see from Gordo? He's going to start against New Mexico State. How's he been throwing it?
Well, all three were really close as we went through camp as far as their performance. Gordon does a really good job in the red zone and in camp, threw a lot of touchdowns and was really efficient at putting it in when we were in the red zone and the goal line. And then the other thing is the ball comes off his hand really quick. I guess I feel like Gage is the best on the move. Mm-hmm. And then and probably the best communicator is Trey as far as communicating to the unit, which I think they're all decent. And then, but Gordon's decent on the move too.
How good is Gordon's arm, just pure talent? If you were to look at Luke Falk and Gardner Minshew and all the QB, Connor Halliday, all the guys who have thrown so many passes here, how does Anthony Gordon, just talent-wise, rack up with those guys?
Well, Halliday's got the best arm.
Okay.
But it comes off his hand really quick like it did with Halliday, and then he plays within himself probably a little better than Connor did. Of course, he's been in the system longer, and then and so he makes really good choices and decisions, and then and it's more sudden than Gardner's and Luke's. We argue all the time how strong his arm is. I think that it's reasonably strong, but I think it's really sudden. So you certainly get the impression it's a strong arm.
You only lose, of the guys he's throwing to, you only lose Kyle Sweet. Now, I know that he's not a wide receiver, but he did have 83 catches last year, and that's James Williams, who's in an NFL camp right now. But you return so much. Is this as deep of a wide receiver core as you've ever coached with all these guys coming back except for Kyle?
Yeah, we've got a lot of faces back, and they've gotten in better shape, I think, over the off season, so they're bigger and stronger than they have been. We'll see what they do this year. The biggest thing is there can't be any level of satisfaction. This is a new year, and so this is all based on what have you done recently rather than in the past, but I think we've got pretty good capability there.
All right. We are just getting rolling here. It's our first segment here with Coach Leach. What we're going to do is take a break and then come back. We'll get to some of your questions here on Twitter. And if you want to call in, feel free. We are live here at Zeppo's. It is game week number 1, Cougs at New Mexico State, coming up on Saturday night. Live here at Zeppo's with Coach Leach. We'll continue. Back here live at Zeppo's. We are live here with Coach Leach, and we're getting set for New Mexico State. We're going to go into some of these Twitter questions here. It's not a Twitter question, but it has come to my attention that our fantastic engineer, Jerry Kylo fan club is in full effect. It's Jerry's 26th year. Absolutely. Legend. As good as an engineer, as good as they get. He tells me a story today, Coach, and I want to know what you would do. So Jerry is up on Kamiak Butte a while back and walks right past a cougar, and there's a cougar like 5 feet from him, and it's looking out onto the wheat fields and just kind of peering out, and Jerry looks at it. You know what that cougar did to Jerry? Nothing. Cougar didn't do a thing to Jerry, and Jerry just walked on by. What would you do if you're on Kamiak Butte by yourself, like our guy Jerry, and ran into a cougar, a live one?
I'd wish I was Jerry because because you know how that came out. Not only that, a cougar wouldn't mess with Jerry.
Right.
You'd be kind of tempted to throw a rock at it, but the alternative of the decision he selects after that, the cougar, that could be a problem. I've heard a rumor, don't know if it's true. Actually, hope it's not. Up around our neighborhood, there's supposedly a cougar wandering around.
Oh,
yeah, and then there's a spot, and I don't know. I'm going to have to confirm this, but I heard it secondhand the other day. There is a spot which I have walked down in the middle of the night. That's really grassy. And there's a bunch of grass there. It's I don't know how to describe it, but basically there's kind of a walking path, and then there adjacent to that there's this spot where you can kind of cut through cross country to the street up there, and walking through that grass. And it did occur to me that this would be fantastic cougar country if a cougar was around. So Hopefully he wasn't there, but if he was, I mean, I had the same luck Jerry did, it sounds like. Jerry
managed it as well as we all would hope to, as he does all situations. So it's also come to my attention as I peer to the back and see some of our friends back there. I've been told by Super Dave Emmerich, your chief of staff, that after wins, meal orders are not to be adjusted here at Zeppo's. If when we win games, of which there's been the majority of the time, you're not allowed. The table in the back does not. There's a lot of anxiety if you change any of your food orders, so everything stays the same. I don't know if you have any superstitions, Coach. We kind of have talked about this a little over the years, but I don't know if you've developed any more over time. Apparently, that's one that goes on here every Thursday.
Well, that's probably a pretty good policy. We better stay out of harm's way. I don't know if there's superstitions, but there's a routine. You have the itinerary, and it's very similar every game, and so I follow the routine. I don't change my belt, and a portion of that has to do with the fact that if you have a broken-in belt and you're going to be carrying around a headset, I just don't want to break in a new belt.
Because you got to clip it on, is it?
Yeah, so that's practical as much as anything, I guess. There was a deal, and I've told this story before. I got a B12 shot one time before a game, and I think it was before we played A&M.
Uh-huh.
And and then we beat A&M. We beat A&M, although it does occur to me that we beat A&M a lot of times without a B12 shot. But several of the coaches, were kind of superstitious about that. And once a week, they'd come in the locker room after warm-up and stare at my bare butt while I got a B12 shot, because they wanted to confirm that had taken place. And, so that they had the right mentality going into the particular game and make sure that we didn't cross anything up. When I read the itinerary, there's a line I have to say every week because we've had success with that. And honestly, that's for others' peace of mind as much as anything, too. It's a line that I really it'd be in my best interest to not repeat here. Um, yeah.
Ed Boyle on Twitter, and we'll roll through some of these questions here on Twitter. Ed wants to know, other than Apple Cup, is there a road game, or is there ever a road game you're more excited about than any other road game? Do you feel like you kind of look forward to some trip more than another? Houston in an NFL stadium? Is it the venue? Is it just maybe proximity? Does anything play into that?
Well, I guess looking at the stadium would be one thing, but I'm pretty even keel all the games, you know, as far as being excited to play them. I've been in Reliant a number of times, played 2 bowl games there and maybe a regular season game there. I can't remember.
Ed, thank you for the question there. How is Reliant?
It's nice.
It's got the big video, the huge video, right?
Well, one year we played, and boy, it was tore up after the game. So they have a great system at Reliant, and I hope I'm not misstating this, but basically the grass is in on pallets, and they can move those pallets around sort of like squares, you know, to have fresh grass. And we played a bowl game there, which was the game that was right before the Super Bowl. It was the last game played on there before the Super Bowl. Of course, the Texans had been playing on there all season, and after that bowl game, there was grass everywhere. I mean, there were dirt spots that they'd spray painted green, you know, to make it look green, I guess, on TV and stuff like that. And we tore it up, but good. And then, of course, they're going to replace it for the Super Bowl.
This one fella on Twitter here, this gentleman has named himself, so this is, don't kill the messenger here. This is he calls himself Fat Squatch. He's 6'4", 350. He says, and he wants to know how much he can donate to the CAF to play right guard for a couple of snaps on Saturday.
Well, we let him do. He better get enrolled pretty quick. He's only got a couple hours.
Yeah, he's running out of time. Thanks for that. I'm just rolling through these here. Not a question for. He wants me to see how fast I can. Can I say Gordo to Borgie 10 times fast? I hope to. That'd be good to say Gordo to Borgie. That was LJ on Twitter. That'd be great. Thanks for the input. Thanks for listening. For the world's most refreshing beer, 21 means 21. Celebrate responsibly with Coors Light, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. It's about the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a break, come back. We'll take more of your questions or thoughts on Twitter. If you want to call in, feel free. We'll go through the New Mexico State Aggies in just a bit. We're live here with Coach Leach at Zeppo's.
on serving the people and businesses in Washington and all across the country since 1863. That's U.S. Bank, equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Back here live at Zeppo's. It is game week number 1 against New Mexico State coming up. We're live here with Coach Leach. Mark Shine asks us on Twitter, Coach, I don't know if you can divulge such state secrets, but he wants to know if we'll see the Big Gulp formation Saturday, and if so, who will snap the football. And in case you're wondering, that's that tricky deal where Kyle Sweet sometimes used to snap it off. It wasn't under center. Got a little tricky over there. And Mark, I don't know if you want to give that away, Coach, here at Zeppo's, but he asked, and I'm throwing it out there.
Well, we probably will. And then, of course, we have a number of snappers, so no telling which guy's going to snap that ball. It just depends on how we set it. And so, yeah, we may run the Big Gulp formation.
Oh, there you go. All right. So you don't know when it's coming, but we might see that one against these New Mexico State Aggies. We'll get to the Aggies in just a bit, but I want to ask you about the defense. This defensive line seems just loaded with talent. Lamont McDougal, Iolupo Teabei, Nnamdi Aguayo, Will Rogers, Amir Crowder, Carson Block, Dallas Hobbs is a big body you could use at nose tackle or defensive tackle. You've got all kinds of options here on the defensive line, don't you?
Yeah, and we're a lot like we were last year. We're a small, quick defensive line, but I like quick, and yeah, they've moved around really well. There will be a lot of teams we play this year that don't run quite as well as our defensive line does.
Yeah, how about let's focus a little bit on Misiona Iolupo Teabei. He, relatively speaking, transferred here as a JUCO, was kind of new to the game, as Jeff Phelps was describing it to me. How's Misi been? He's put some weight on. He looks really good. How's he played?
How in the world would you know how to say that?
It took a couple of tries. It's Iolupo. I actually was talking with Jessamine about it, and we settled on it. Kind of sounds like potato baby, and it's Iolupo Teabei, and it's with a P, but it's actually pronounced like a B. And I think I've got it down. So
well,
I hope I did. Apologies to Misi if I didn't, but I think I got it.
Well I'm going to stick with Misi.
Okay.
And but no, he plays really well. You know, he plays with low pads. He's got violent hands. You know, kind of a low center of gravity guy. Really disruptive in there. Gets good push. Has really gotten better as a player in this last year, and he's played a number of sports over there in Australia and New Zealand, and so he's played a lot of things, plenty of things I don't even know the rules of, but and his dad, if I remember correctly, was like kind of a professional national rugby player.
Really good. Yeah, he comes from a really athletic family. His dad was a great rugby player, and I know you've always loved that. Shalom Luani, Frankie Luvu played soccer. Shalom was a two-sport athlete, and Misi's a multi-sport athlete. And I know you've always said you love the footwork of, especially for a bigger guy, because for a bigger guy who weighs 270, 280 to be that nimble, a lot of that comes from playing other sports, right?
Yeah, and it helps that you have to run a lot in rugby, and so they're usually pretty well conditioned and good change of direction guys.
How's Lamont McDougal been? Lamont, whose father, Stalker, and uncle, Jerome, played for years in the NFL, and Lamont trying to follow in their footsteps, the redshirt sophomore. How's Lamont been?
He's doing good, really good. And he's another low center of gravity guy, but he's got long arms, and you know, he's a hard guy. You can't get under his pads, so he's under yours all the time, and just real disruptive inside, and you know, and he's quick, so he's good at shooting the gaps too.
Yeah, he's. I've watched Will Rogers and Carson Block. Especially Carson really works his tail off, doesn't he? He works hard every day.
Yeah, Carson works really hard. Will Rogers is he's getting better and better, and really started to take off last year. Carson Block is kind of a you know, tough, mean, old school guy that. You know, just finds his way into plays all the time. You know, just works extremely hard.
Now, how's Amir Crowder been? He had a redshirt year last year. Comes to the Palouse from Los Angeles. He went to the same high school actually as Derek Moore, and Derek was a really effective defensive end for the Cougs when he was out there. How's Amir been developing?
Big, explosive, still kind of getting it reined in a little bit, but he can really be dominant too.
You've actually got a few, more than just a few. You got a good handful of NFL players' children on this team. Calvin Jackson Sr. played for years for the Dolphins. Mentioned Lamont McDougal. Well, Ron Stone's father was a 13-year NFL O-lineman, multi-time Pro Bowler, won a Super Bowl with the Cowboys. He was in one of the hotels that we were in after the broadcast last year. And growing up, he was a New York Giant. Everybody knew Ron Stone. He was a Pro Bowl offensive lineman for the Giants. How's Ron Stone Jr. been? Now, Jr.'s not as big as Senior, but he's still, 6'3", 230 pounds. He's still a big boy at rush linebacker.
Really long arms, quick, extremely athletic. Another one of those guys, if you could spare him, could play tight end. Why don't you have a tight end? Well, because he's playing outside linebacker and he's preoccupied with sacking quarterbacks and tackling people that other people can't reach. No, just a really good athlete. Always in a good mood. So if you're having a horrible day, go try to catch up to R.J. Stone. He'll straighten you out.
I'll have to get him on the microphone there and bring some of that onto the...
He looks like The Rock.
Yeah,
we even call him The Rock. No, but his face looks like The Rock. His voice is like The Rock. He smiles all the time like The Rock.
Can he do the eyebrow thing and the people's elbow? We need to see if he can do the people's elbow and the.
I think he can.
Yeah, we'll talk to him about that. That'd be awesome. How about is Jahad Woods the leader of the defense?
I think we probably have several, but he's certainly one of them. When he makes the calls, and guys that make the calls, just because they're speaking, tend to be the leader, at least by position, because that's where the communication comes from. He's a really smart guy, very smart guy, and explosive too. He's one of those guys that hits you and stuff goes further and flies around more than you expect. And then, of course, I thought he was outstanding at media days because he didn't say too much, so I thought that part was good.
82 tackles last year. I ask because you lose sixth-year Coug and 98 tackles in Peyton Pallure, and it is sort of jarring at first to look at the linebacking core and not see 47 out there. He's been there for so long and for so many huge moments, and now Jahad maybe he's kind of that guy who, like you said, has the calls out there, and now he's a redshirt junior, and he's stripped Sam Darnold against USC, and he's had all those big moments out there. I thought maybe he could kind of grow into that role that Peyton had out there. What do you think?
Well, I think he already kind of has, and
Yeah.
he played beside Peyton for quite some time, and well, I'll tell you a guy that's really, really elevated his game is Justice Rogers. Justice Rogers started camp and went on a tear and has continued. Got a freakish number of turnovers, just crazy. Like you say the ball would find him. I think he'd find the ball. He's just really instinctive out there.
And so he's going to play a bunch at middle linebacker then right next to Jahad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Willie Taylor on that rush side. Willie had a really good season last year as a redshirt sophomore. Had 4 sacks, 17 QB hurries he was credited for. I mean, he was in the backfield quite a bit. Willie's pretty good off that rush side, isn't he?
He's a really good pass rusher. Willie Taylor's a really good pass rusher.
All right, let's do a little bit of conversation here. There's some meat on the bone here to talk in the secondary because you suddenly lose Jalen Thompson, unexpectedly lose Jalen, and he's a fifth-round supplemental draft pick of the Arizona Cardinals. And so you have Skylar Thomas and you have Marcus Strong, and they're back with a lot of experience. And then you're trying to fill some spots in. The cornerback spot that Darian Moulton vacated, Sean Harper, and then the safety spot that Jalen had, and free safety. And so there's kind of a lot going on here because Hunter Dale graduated. And so how has all that gone with some more open spots to fill in the secondary?
Well, we've got taller, faster guys, but less polished, I would say, is how it is now, although I expect that to change as the season goes on, and Armani Marsh is a real achiever. Derek Langford is a tall guy that's really fast and physical too. Daniel Isom Daniel Isom's got a fascinating story. His dad for years was chief of police in St. Louis.
Huh.
And from what I understand, they called him out of retirement to help solve that Ferguson situation. So
Wow.
he's definitely quite a stud. And then, and Isom will hit you big time. And then, Beekman's been pretty steady out there. He's real athletic and still just trying to get everybody playing together, as I'd say is probably the biggest thing, so that they're really get familiar with what the other guy's doing when.
How's Skylar Thomas been at that nickel spot?
Skylar Thomas last year, I think, he was one of our leading tacklers last year. I was thinking he might have been the leading tackler. And then, but Skylar finds his way into a lot of plays. The thing I like about Skylar Thomas is Skylar's full throttle all the time. Like whatever Skylar's doing right now, and I have no idea what it is, but whatever he's doing, he's going full speed. I mean, he's full speed the whole time. And when he first got here, sometimes he was full speed going the wrong direction, which, if a guy's going to go the wrong direction, you'd rather have a slow guy because then at least he'll be closer to the ball. But Skylar, now he goes to the ball all the time, really fast, and it does a really good job. He's a great example to everybody as far as just playing hard. He's one speed all the time.
Do you think Skylar, because he was a safety last year, and he's got that speed and seems to really like contact, will Skylar play nickel like Shalom Luani? Will he kind of try to, because it felt like Shalom was everywhere. Maybe that's just because Shalom was so good. But it feels like Skylar maybe could kind of be like that because he's so fast.
Well, that's what he's been doing up to this point, and what's difficult is now all of a sudden, Skylar's 2 steps quicker, and it makes it tough.
And then last we saw Marcus Strong, it was the Alamo Bowl, and he had a pick 6 called back after that interception because of a celebration, which to me is an eye roll. I don't know. I don't want to put you in a bad spot talking about officiating. I can do that. Maybe.
Yeah, I can't talk about officiating unless you want to spend some money.
I know. I'm going to skip that. No, we'll skip that.
If I ever do, though, I'll make sure I get my money's worth, and I did one time.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just as far as a rule, as a rule, I'm against the celebration penalty. Always have been, because I think it's up to coaches to decide, how they want their teams to behave, and if you don't want them to celebrate, coach them out of it. In some cases, this celebration rule, we've kind of legislated against having fun.
Right.
And so, and some things are appropriate, some aren't. But regardless, that's that other team to decide. They decide, what behavior is appropriate with their guys, and I think they should decide. I don't think that conferences and officials should, and I think that, or the NCAA, and I think that, I mean, we already have enough rules. We don't need additional rules, and I think there should be one rule. Like if somebody quickly spikes the ball, no penalty. If somebody does some kind of a dance or holds the ball, doesn't give the ball up, or throws it way up in the stands, delay a game. I think it should be as simple as that.
Post-game party never stops at Northern Quest, 24/7 gaming, over a dozen restaurants and lounges, luxury rooms, and more. Details at northernquest.com. We're live here with Coach Leach working through this first coaches show. The first week of college football is finally upon us. Big games, by the way, in the league tonight. UCLA is playing Cincinnati right now, and a huge game for the league. Utah takes on BYU in a little bit. We'll take a break, come back. You're listening to the Coach here live at Zeppo's.
Time now to look ahead at this week's game with the Coors Light Opponent Preview. Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer.
Back here live at Zeppo's, we are talking football here with Coach Leach. It's the New Mexico State University Aggies, and independent. They're in a unique situation that actually a lot of folks in this area will identify with it and know quite a bit about, because it was actually New Mexico State and Idaho that both pulled out of the Sun Belt. And Idaho is now the Big Sky. New Mexico State is independent. They play a brutal schedule this year. They start out here in Pullman. They go to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. Later this year, they take on Ole Miss at Ole Miss. They actually play Liberty twice. They do a home-and-home with Liberty. It's kind of a unique situation. That's a tough deal, isn't it, being independent, trying to figure out their way in college football, Coach?
It is now. It is now. That that deal about being independent, that ship has sailed pretty much. And I kind of look for Notre Dame to end up in a conference before long. I could be wrong, and who knows? They may decide something different. But now that when they expanded all these conferences, when they made all these conferences, I mean, hell, they'd put 20 teams in a conference if you'd let them. And that's not exactly a good number, I don't think. And so then when everybody went 12 or more in their conference, it's just awfully hard to put together a schedule now. And and then people tend to play non-conference teams the first 3 games, and unless you're the SEC and you have a pretty good idea on how to schedule. And then I just think it's hard to put together a really good schedule being independent nowadays with all the conference obligations. And I think that they need to get in a conference. I think the perfect number for a conference, to be honest with you, is 10.
And then you play everybody once. And New Mexico State, to your point, they play one school twice, home and home, in Lynchburg, Virginia, against the Liberty Flames. Their coaching staff, a lot of experience. Doug Martin, he's been there 7 years. He was a head coach at Kent State for 7 years. And then Frank Spaziani is their defensive coordinator in his 4th year. He was the Boston College head coach for 4 years in the ACC. When you were getting prepped here for this New Mexico State defense, Coach, what did you see on film, at least schematically? What are they good at? What do you see? I know they have a very productive middle linebacker, Javon Ferguson. He had 132 tackles in 10 games last year. Yeah,
he runs all over the place, and he's very aggressive and can rush the passer, too. Just a really good football player. They run a lot of zone, but they'll blitz more than the national average. I think so. I think they have a good defense. 2 years ago, they went to a bowl, and I think that they kind of feel like this might be their year. And then the other thing that's difficult to say is they're a team that gets a lot of transfers. So some of the guys you're not familiar with. I mean, you never know which one's great and which one's okay, So.
Right, especially first game of the year. They've just transferred there. They're figuring it out. All right, we are up against a break. We've got a little bit of time left here in the show. We need to take it. We're live here with Coach Leach. That's the opponent preview quickly there for the New Mexico State Aggies. 5 o'clock airtime, 7 o'clock kick this Saturday. Live here back at Zeppo's next with Coach Leach.
Hey, I'm Kirk Herbstreit.
1-866-268-4825. Live from Zeppo's alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach. Here's Matt Chazanow.
Back here live at Zeppo's. It is our final segment here, live with Coach. We've got a few minutes left. And this opening weekend of college football starts off, well, there's the 0 week. How do you feel about 0 week before we get to it? The games last week, there were 2 games. In fact, the Pac-12 had a game. Hawaii beat Arizona out there in Hawaii. What do you think of 0 week? And then I'll know your thoughts on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and maybe even Monday for college football for this first week before the NFL starts.
Okay, 0 week. I guess I like watching the games because it breaks things up. I don't like I don't like 0 week. I like starting when the rest of the country does, and I think that's a better way to do it because sometimes it can throw your training out of whack. The worst thing in the world, and this happened to me once, to have 0 week and then an off week, and I have virtually no interest in that. And then Thursday games are awkward because it's too early. I think it's hard on the fans. I'm more interested in playing on Saturday. Friday, in some places, are different than others. And I'm kind of curious with the High School Coaches Association saying to the University of Houston scheduling a game on Friday because they'd always hammer us at Tech, because Friday's reserved for high school, And,
sure.
And I'd get a letter from the Coaches Association. I'd say, sorry, I didn't schedule it.
Right.
I'm with you on this, and and then off we'd go and go ahead and go out there and play on Friday.
Did you ever play on a Sunday week 1? Do they? Because is it? I think that's possible.
I don't know.
Yeah. But it's really fun. Well, I think it's really fun for fans. I don't want to speak for all fans because it is kind of fun when all the games are going on just on Saturday, and I would imagine consuming it that way is. I'm with you guys. So I think people kind of like it more when it's just like you said, the ideal deal, right? Saturday, 2-3 o'clock.
I love it when somebody else is playing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think it's a good idea for everybody else. And then of course my wife watches all of them, and then but it's just I think it's tough for. Fans all fired up about the team and the schedule and then, hustling home from work, trying to get something to eat, and then getting in the stands and that sort of thing.
We didn't talk about it. We've got like 60 seconds left, maybe 120 seconds left. Your kicker and your punter coming back. Blake Mazza and Oscar Dragicevic. Oscar has been booming the ball. And Blake looks pretty darn good, too. He hit the game winner, the go-ahead eventual game winner against Stanford. And both those guys look good. Special teams look good, don't they?
Yeah, and I think they've both gotten better. I mean, even though I thought they were pretty good last year, I think they've both gotten better.
Huge thanks to everybody who showed up. It's so good to see everybody. It really is. For everybody who tuned in, for Jerry, for Drew Casey back in the studio. Coach, thank you so much. As always, 5 o'clock airtime, 7 o'clock kick. Cougs host the Aggies season opener coming up Saturday.